Okay. Hi, everybody. We are going to jump right in for our webinar this morning about MasterControl logbooks and how you can create more efficiency, both with logbooks and other digital solutions. My name is Caitlin Minton-Smith, and I will be the moderator today. And with me today is Mooch. Mooch, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey everybody. Welcome. As Caitlin mentioned, I'm Mooch. I'm a senior product manager here. I'm responsible for the logbooks product and looking forward to the conversation today.
Thanks, Mooch. So we're going to cover a couple of things today. We are going to talk a little bit just about kind of the power of electronic logbooks. Mooch is going to take us through a logbook software demo. And then we have a couple folks from Pine Pharmaceuticals here with us who are going to give us their perspective on logbooks. They've been one of our early adopter customers and have really gotten into the software and have been using it quite a bit. So very excited to hear their perspectives. Couple housekeeping items. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. So please feel free to ask questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of the window at any time during the webinar, and we will get to as many of those at the end of the broadcast as possible. And if you have any technical difficulties throughout the webinar, please don't hesitate to send us a message in the chat in Zoom, and we will work with you to get it resolved. Diving in, I wanted to talk a little bit about the history and why we decided to move into electronic logbooks at MasterControl. So a brief history of logbooks, not sure how many of you know this, is that it's a long history. Log plus book, circa 1670s. They used to actually be called a chip log, and it would be dropped off the side of the boat, and it would measure the speed by how far they traveled. I wish I could tell you the mechanics behind this, but I can't because I am not a mariner, nor do I live in the 1670s. We have come a long way since dropping chips off the side of a boat to see how far we are traveling. And logbooks are now used across several industries, shipping, trucking, aviation, and of course, life sciences. And they're really used to track those chronological activities that happen day to day. We started to think about ways that we could serve our customers better a couple of years ago. And we started talking with a lot of you about where you were having difficulties. And what we found was that everybody uses logbooks. However, most of those logbooks remain on paper. So this screenshot here of a digital logbook, a paper logbook, is probably something that is a bit familiar to you. Yours likely isn't this clean. Perhaps it has scribbles on it, crosses out, corrections, things like that. So we really wanted to embrace and really think about how we could continue to serve you as our customers and how we could continue to digitize different areas in quality and manufacturing. Some of the most common issues that we heard about from our customers during our research with your paper logbooks were things like human error, so not filling out a logbook or potentially not being able to read what somebody filled out. The inability to really make changes on the fly or to be able to see this information wherever you were. And probably one of the biggest issues we heard was really locating information inside of a logbook. So as you know, you probably have 50 to 200 to maybe 300 logbooks in your facility. And if they're on paper and you need to find a single entry from a single day 6 months ago, it's quite difficult. This is really what we set out to solve when we started thinking about electronic logbooks at MasterControl. So what did we come up with? Well, we came up with MasterControl logbooks. And we wanted to use a lot of the same premises that we had brought into our production records solution. So things like having a really intuitive no-code builder, having that connectivity between systems. So for those of you who have QX or MX or both, being able to connect this into your systems and really making sure that you have that seamless exchange of information. We, of course, wanted to bring in a lot of those controls that we see in other MasterControl products around quality assurance, compliance, things like that. Obviously, want to make sure things get done when they're supposed to, so scheduling reminders, and obviously wanting to get that data out and starting to really see and trend and track what's happening with your logbooks over time. Something that's very hard to do today if you are in a paper environment. So I could talk about logbooks probably for the next 45 minutes, but that would be a little bit boring and not likely what you're here for. So I'm going to actually pass the time over to Mooch, and he is going to give us an in-depth demo of the system. Mooch, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Caitlin. So hey, everybody, I'm going to share my screen now. And what you should see is just me logged into my MasterControl. So very familiar probably for a lot of you that are customers of ours. Just to summarize, I'm going to kind of walk through a couple of different personas in the system. So we're going to put on kind of our operator hats first, frontline workers. So I'm going to show you how logbooks work in the system, what your end users might see basically as they're executing their logbook records. We're then going to go back and I'll show you how I built those logbooks and how we created the templates that were used to generate them. So it would be someone like your tech writers, QA managers, things like that. Okay, so you can see I've logged into my system. I've got access to kind of all the modules available. And we can see here at the bottom, this lovely new tile, my favorite tile, the logbooks tile. So I'm going to click on that and you'll be directed basically to our new logbooks application. And here is basically the list of all the logbooks that are available in the system. You can see I've started some. You can see some other folks have started some. We're going to focus on these kind of top three here, the daily equipment inspection logbooks. And you can see they're based off of the same template, the unique number, the revision, as well as who created it. If I click over here, we've got some options to export to physical copies like CSV, PDF, potentially archival as well. And then we can see kind of which ones have rows that are ready for review. So as a reviewer, this would be where I would kind of look into the system, kind of see stuff. What I want to also show you is logging in as another user. Don't ask me how I know Stephen Brown's credentials, but I do. You can see he's logged in also to the same tenant and sees only 3 logbooks. So this is something we'll talk about when we get to the templates as well, but you can control and access who's authorized to do what with each logbook. So if you need to segregate by department or by other attributes, you are able to do so. And we'll get back to Stephen here in a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go into this line 4 daily inspection log. And this is the actual digital representation of what you might have laying around your shop floor. So those paper logbooks that Caitlin had showed in one of her slides, and maybe some things that you're familiar with on your shop floor, this is the actual replacement of that. So you might see something like this in a tablet, on a computer, somewhere near like your piece of equipment or lab scale, lab bench, or anywhere you might be using logbooks. So we've got some instructions here. We've got a linked SOP in case you need additional work instructions or SOPs. Maybe there's a training required to do inspection that you want to link. If I go over to the right, we can see some details about the logbook, similar to what we saw on the list page, who created it, the number, what revision. We can see some linked documents, so there would be additional links here. You linked additional documents, potentially linking to other software applications on our platform, things like quality events or production records. What you can also see is a detailed contextual audit history of everything that happened inside of this logbook. Tons of information here. I would say probably not as useful every day. What you can also see every day is kind of who did what in context inside of the logbook. So here's basically where most of your users are going to be interacting with the system. They're going to be working on in-progress rows as an operator or a line worker. They might be reviewing some rows if they're in QA or a supervisor, or they might be looking at the reviewed rows if they're an exec or someone who's maybe auditing the system. And again, here you can audit in the system or via PDF and CSV. What we can also do, this is kind of what I had talked about a little bit earlier, you can manage permissions on logbooks. So here I've defined who's the owner. This is basically someone who can do anything in the logbook, who can enter data in the logbook, who can review, and who you might want to just have look at the system. Keep in mind here, these can be users or groups. So if I had a group like Gemma user group, anybody in that group is able to now own and see this logbook in the system. All right, so we're going to actually enter some data. So you can see here, I've got 3 rows in progress. I can also start a new row if I wanted to. And this is how your operators are actually entering data inside. So how they're completing a row in a logbook. It's mobile device tuned. So it works really well on tablets. It's touch friendly. We've made a lot of adjustments basically for users to be able to kind of quickly go in and do things. I'm actually going to start on row 13 because I had started this earlier. We're just doing an inspection of the equipment that are inside of line 4. So I had picked the pipette this morning. If I want, I can toggle detailed view, and I can see actually Steven did this morning and when he did it. Useful for the reviewers, and we'll kind of get back to that. So I selected the pipette. I'll decide if it's in good working condition. I'm looking at the pipette. It looks good to me. So I'm going to say yes. I can see that this step requires a witness and that it's mandatory. The way I know that is I cannot continue executing anything else until it's witnessed by another user. So I've entered this data. I'm going to go ahead and ask Steven, my colleague next to me, hey, Steven, can you review this thing and witness it for me? And Steven's going to say, yeah, sure, I'll do that for you. And he's going to sign off on this witness. Once he signs off, you can see that I can kind of continue my work here and talk about kind of what else I need to do. You can also, when we get to kind of creating the template, I'll show you how you can kind of set all of this up and what works for you. Just keep in mind, this is just for example purposes. So because it's passed, I don't need to take any corrective action. So I'm going to mark this as not applicable. I can provide some comments. I can also mark this as NA if I want, but I'm just going to say everything looks good to me. Then I'm going to confirm I completed the steps. And once I'm done, you can see this row now moves from in progress to ready for review. It's for that reviewer to kind of look at the end of the week or the end of the month or whatever cadence you set for that logbook. So that's basically how an end user enters and executes data in the logbook. We'll just talk a little bit about the review process here. It's very quick, very easy. So as a reviewer, when you come into this logbook, so now we're acting as Brandy Johnson. You can kind of look in at all of the rows. You can toggle this detailed view. This kind of gives you more information contextually as to what's going on. Very useful when you're reviewing. So I can see kind of who's been entering data on each row. And what I want to focus on here as a reviewer are the unexpected events in the system, right? And the system is going to kind of surface those up to you. Right now, we only see corrections. There might be other unexpected events in the future, like limit violations or other things that you might describe as unexpected in the logbook template. So I can see here, for example, row 12 has been corrected. If I look down, row 7 has been corrected. So has row 6. If I click into it, I can actually see the previous value and the new value. I can also look at the rationale that was given as to why it was corrected. So all of these things are kind of useful for a reviewer to complete their review. What I can then do is I can select all, or I can kind of go down the checklist. So this is how we've seen some of our EAs do it. They'll kind of like glance at each row. They might open one up, look through it. For example, this one I might want to focus in on, and then start checking stuff off, right? So I'm going to check these 3, and I'm going to start a review. And I'm going to, as Brandy, review these rows. And as you're noticing, once I've reviewed those rows, they move into this reviewed column. I'm doing all of this logged in as my user, Mooch, right? So we offer over the shoulder. You can also do this logged in as Steven or Brandy, but keep in mind, the system will know who did what at all times, right? So even when you provide a signature, the audit trail will reflect exactly what happened, so that you don't need to log in, log out every time you want to do an action. And if I look at the review details, you can see it was Brandy who did all this stuff on behalf of Mooch, who was logged in. Okay, so that's pretty much the flow for a logbook. So we've got rows in progress, so you can come in each day, each hour, kind of enter data that you need to for a row in a logbook. Your reviewers then kind of come in, review everything, maybe yell at some folks to fix some stuff, check off some things, right? Sign off on it, and then it moves into reviewed. You can always come in here and look at kind of all the rows in context if you want to as well. So that's everything inside of a logbook. I am now going to take off my operator hat, and we're going to go inside of templates, and I'll show you how I created this template. So here's the list or that logbook. So here's the list of all the templates in my system. And this is actually the daily inspection template that I use to create my logbook. Similar pattern here. You can see the list, its current revision, who created it when, if validation was required, whether it passed or failed. I'm going to kind of go into this, and this is now our builder UI. So this is kind of how you build logbook templates. And keep in mind, you can only create logbooks from published logbook templates. That's what we allow in the system. So I'm going to revise this template. So we're going to go from revision 2 to revision 3. Now I can see I have all of the actions available for me to kind of add steps, modify steps, maybe change some settings. So just like with templates, we've got a contextual audit history of all the changes that may have happened inside of this template, useful when reviewing or approving. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to maybe just add a few steps, and these are the step types that we allow for logbooks. So I might add a number step type here, and this is how that looks in the system. I'll edit it, and I'll say enter a value between 1 and 10. I can give it some settings on each step. So here's where you saw that witness and verify and not applicable. This is how I set that up. So you can require a witness, and this could be an authorized user or a user group. You can make that mandatory. Basically what that means is what you saw, I can't move forward to the next step until this one is signed off. You can also make it optional in case you want them to provide some value or not, depending on the scenario. I can also delete these steps. If I've realized I don't like it, I can move it around like this. I can also use the arrow keys to move it around. And you can kind of see all of that is documented in line in the audit history. We also have some additional settings on the template. So here's where you add your instructions, where you link those related documents. So this would be pulling from your documents module. And we are looking at those released SOPs or templates that we point to. We also have permissions on templates. So they're slightly different. Basically here, what you're defining is who else can author this template with you. So if this could be your tech writing group or specific users you designate in your business. We also have logbook creators. So here we allow the builder to decide who can launch a logbook from this, right? So this list of creators, they become those eventual logbook owners. So the people who launch logbooks and set up all the things inside of a logbook. We also have approvals enabled in case you need it. So if this logbook is highly critical and requires an approval process, you can set up approvals so that it goes to QA, manufacturing, tech ops, whoever needs to approve. You can add multiple steps here if it needs to go through multiple approval cycles. I'm going to just turn this off because I like it easy. You can run validation. So again, if this is kind of a in a GMP environment or a highly critical logbook, you can justify and require validation on it. I actually have already done that, so I'm going to click run validation. And what the system is doing here is basically it's going to create a logbook based off of your configuration. So you're validating your specific settings and not MasterControl doing this for you in kind of a generic template. So I'm going to run validation. This should take 10 to 15 seconds. So what the system is doing is it's generating that logbook for you. It's compiling a report, it's creating those rows, the number of rows that you determined, and it's deciding whether or not it passed or failed. So if I click here, you can see it uploaded that validation report, and this would be useful for those folks who require validation. It's basically just allowing you, instead of manually going and creating a logbook and testing it, saving you some time and letting the system do it for you. Once I'm ready to publish, let's say it's gone through all the approvals. Approvals would display in the signature manifest here. I haven't turned it on, which is why you don't see it here. You can then publish this template. So once published, now Rev 3 is published, and you can see Rev 2 has moved to archive. All of the logbooks that were created from Rev 2 will get a notification, hey, this is out of spec. There's a new revision out. Do you want to create a new revision? So that's basically how you execute logbooks and build logbooks. This is meant to be kind of just a brief introduction into how it works. There's a lot more to it, but the main takeaway I want you to get here is it's very easy to get set up and started. I showed it to you in 10 to 15 minutes. It's not very difficult, and that's kind of our intent and purpose here. We want to make it very easy to get introduced to logbooks for your business. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to you, Caitlin.
Thanks, Mitch.
No worries.
So I am very excited to introduce a couple of our early adopters who have generously agreed to join us this morning and tell us a little bit about their usage of MasterControl logbooks and what they have seen. So join me in welcoming Jim Ando and Bob Mansell to the stage.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Bob.
Hello.
Hi, Jim. Well, thank you both so much for joining us this morning. And for folks who are attending the webinar this morning, we really wanted to have an opportunity to talk with some folks who have been using MasterControl logbooks for, almost 6 months, about 5-6 months now, and somewhat in a productive environment as well. So we're going to have a quick conversation with Jim and Bob, and then we will dive into our Q&A with the audience. So Jim, can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do at Pine Pharmaceuticals?
Yeah, I'm Jim Ando. I'm the manager of our innovation and development department here, so responsible for development of new products and new processes. And I was also the one who was involved with the onboarding of our MX EBR electronic badge record system in 2022.
And Bob?
Hi, I'm Bob Bitzel. I am the IT MasterControl System Administrator for Pine, and I am the one who now, after Jimbo did MX, I onboard any new modules, and I basically just configure and keep our MasterControl in a validated state here.
Awesome. Can you guys tell me a little bit about what Pine Pharma does?
Yeah, so Pine, we're an FDA registered 503B outsourcing facility. So we're kind of like a cross between a compounding pharmacy and a large scale GMP manufacturer, but we do work under GMP conditions. We prepare high quality, ready to administer compound medications and repackaged products, either for hospital use, surgical use, and office use for doctors.
And can you tell me a little bit about what your digital journey has looked like with MasterControl? I know that you guys have both quality and manufacturing, so can you talk to us a little bit just about how Pine got to where it is today?
Yeah, so back in 2020 was when we started onboarding the QMS, the quality management portion of MasterControl, quality management, and the document system, and that side of everything. And then we kind of started to look at, after we kind of gotten used to MasterControl and the interface and everything like that, tried to look into how we could further enhance our digital transformation, and documentation and batch records, batch specific documentation is obviously one of the most important, but also time-consuming and error-prone processes in the pharmaceutical manufacturing. So everything needs to be documented. If it wasn't documented, it didn't happen. I'm sure a lot of people out there have heard that saying. So when we saw the electronic batch records system with MasterControl, just started to quickly look into that, and it was kind of a no-brainer to be able to link with our quality management system, and also to be able to kind of minimize a lot of the issues associated with documentation of batch records. So we started with that, and then we've kind of been growing since then, adding anything we can, and making strides for the digital transformation wherever we could.
Awesome. All right, let's dive into the topic of the hour, logbooks. I believe you guys first saw logbooks a couple years ago at Master Summit. Can you tell me what went through your head the first time that you saw this electronic logbook solution?
Yeah, so the first time we saw it was at the 2022 summit when they were showcasing it. And I spent a lot of time at that booth when I first laid eyes on it. And my first impressions were it was incredibly clean. It looked simple, even in that very, very early state that they were showcasing at the summit. And just knowing what our company was in the middle of currently going through with all of our paper logbooks, it just jumped right out at us for something that we would want to implement as soon as it was available to us. Because it just off the demo, so many things it improves for us that we saw and eliminate, like Jimbo said about EBR's documentation. I mean, we've had instances of missing logbooks, can't find them. Like I just knew right away we have tablets floating all over our plant. So this is just an immediate way to put every logbook that we need every operator to see in their hands at any time, instead of having to physically walk around the plant or to a location where we keep them. So it was just right away, clean, simple, nice.
I love that. That's so... You just, would you like to come work for us? Because you just hit all the highlights for MasterControl logbooks. You guys became an early adopter in January, February. So can you talk with me or tell kind of Mooch and I what the process was when you first got access? Kind of what did you guys do? What did you think about the system? Sounds like you really thought it might work for you when you saw it in 2022, but obviously seeing a demo on a screen versus having the product in hand is quite a bit different. So can you just walk me through what that experience was like and some of the things that you liked about it?
Yeah, so right off the bat, I had a little bit of familiarity with the platform because of AQEM, and we started with that a little bit before logbooks came out. So we were actually fortunate enough. I had a lot of our attributes and user groups and everything already set up. So basically from the moment that Mooch contacted us and said, thanks for joining the early adopter, this is now available at your test site and your production site. I think after the first 3 days of having access, we already had a total of 20 logbooks built, approved, and transferred to our production site, published, and already being documented in by our operators. Me and Jimbo both had a conversation that we were kind of shocked at how easy that was. I think we even surprised Mooch because our first call with him, he thought he was going to have to explain how to use the module to us, and we already told him we were using it in a production setting. So not to sound repetitive, but it was really just that simple. Like, we took our paper logbooks, I had them sitting on my desk right next to me, and we were able to just recreate them column by column into the digital format, send it through approval to whoever we wanted. Those people could easily request corrections, additions, or anything right there in the approval process. And like I said, within a matter of hours for some logbooks, days for a couple of the other bigger ones, we had them published and ready to go and in the hands of our users. So it was really smooth. It was really nice. We liked it from the first second. It started easy, basically.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I do recall that first call, and I think everybody from the MasterControl side was pleasantly surprised at how your company and you have both just embraced it and kind of got it working long before our first call with you, which is very impressive and I think is very much a testament to the simplicity of the system. And that's definitely something that we wanted to ensure that we built into logbooks for our users, knowing how they're used and knowing how all the places that they need to be. Thinking about that, I guess, how are you using the logbooks today? So, where are you using them, and kind of what do you guys think, or I guess, how are you guys going to use them moving into the future as the functionality expands?
So currently we actually launched them into each of our departments that utilize logbooks at the plant. So they are in our finishing, packaging, and inspection department. They are in our manufacturing aseptic operations, and then in both micro and chemistry laboratories so far, which basically covers our entire plant. We have them used for everything from usage, maintenance, sample delivery to the lab, just general equipment use, like for our plant, what containment hood and operator manufactured what lot in. So we're pretty much using it in full capacity already almost as to what data we could capture with it. As far as our plans for the future, I already have our meeting set up for next week with with Jimbo and the other heads of the company to pretty much lay out our path forward for how are we going to convert everything, how are we going to consolidate logbooks, and when we're going to be just 100% digital as far as logbooks go. So hopefully within the next few months, we're actually going to be using nothing but MasterControl logbooks for all of these situations.
Yeah, and to jump into like Bob had said with consolidating was I think a big portion of it too, realizing that with the transition to the electronic system, we could, we might have, 20 pieces of equipment that are, it's all virtually the same equipment, just with different ID numbers, things like that. Right now we have separate logbooks for each one of those because it's hard to go through and track, if each line is changing the equipment ID and things like that. But the fact that you can, export, you can report and filter out by the categories, we're able to combine all those 20 pieces of equipment into one logbook where the operator selects which ID number they're using, and then we can, when needed, we can generate the specific usage just to that piece of equipment or to all the equipment in general. And then, it's only one you have to keep up with versus 20 or 30. So that was definitely a huge part as well.
Wow. So it sounds like you guys are really streamlining a lot of the activities around logbooks specifically, to make them easier to use, easier to manage, easier to review, things like that. So that sounds like one very big benefit. Any other benefits that you guys have seen since adopting electronic logbooks?
For me and my end users, at least from what I've gotten feedback from, is just how accessible they are. We really did have a big issue with, we have 5+ operators needing to use the same logbook at the same time. That whole problem went away with this because we can have multiple people documenting rows at the same time in the same logbook. There's no more hunting down a logbook in our plant because a supervisor has it somewhere to review however many rows, etc. It's pretty much the ease of use going from paper to this, where no more hunting, no more pages, no more paper. Just as long as you have a tablet or a computer in the general vicinity of your body, you have your logbook. It just has made everything so much easier and faster as far as that goes for us here. So that's a big one for us.
Yeah, and I think from the review side too as well, we had issues in the past where I'm sure a lot of places have with timely review of logbooks, just because there's so many of them. The review can take such a long time to go line by line and make sure there's no spelling errors, no clarity errors, everything's documented correctly. So we there would be instances where we might get behind on our review and things like that, which is obviously, it isn't great. So being able to have, a supervisor can go in there and review 20 rows in a matter of a minute or two, especially in the instance where there's no corrections or anything to really look into. It just was able to save a lot of time and effort on that side as well.
Amazing. Last question before we dive into the audience Q&A, of which we have a lot, so prepare yourselves. So whether it's the QMS, whether it's, the MES EBR or logbooks, for you guys at Pine and maybe Pine in general, what are you most excited about moving away from paper, kind of being on this digital transformation journey?
For me personally, it's the time that paper logbooks consume. So like Jimbo said, the review, also it's a big strain on our doc control department. It's just hours and hours and hours that are going to be eliminated for printing, binding, verifying, issuing, tracking all of them. I mean, we have some logbooks at our plant that get up to like every time a logbook's filled, we issue a new volume. We have some that reach 30s, 40s, and 50s. They're just that high usage, and we cannot make them contain any more pages than they already have. So this basically eliminates all of that. So it's a big one for us, is the time that it's going to save. I basically told our doc control department that they're going to go from spending a majority of their week to issuing and maintaining logbooks to barely seeing them at all anymore. So they were very, very excited, because I have some 20 and 30 plus year doc control veterans who've been drowning in logbooks for a long time, and they're going to get to basically end their career with hardly ever seeing them again. So that was a very, very big one for us. And also just not having to issue new logbooks every year, because with all the tracking and everything this module has, we're going to be able to create a logbook, and unless we revise it and need to issue a new template, the logbook's just going to run, and there's no need to, 2025 is here, let's issue all the 2025 volume once. No, you just continue using the same logbook, and you can filter everything down by year for what you find. So big time saver for us on that.
Anything to add, Jim?
Yeah, no, definitely on the not necessarily specific to logbooks, but to the digital platform in general. We've seen a lot of benefit with data analytics. So being able to we utilize our visual, we do 100% visual inspection on all of our finished units, and being able to track and trend that data by category, by product type. It was virtually impossible before, when everything, when you have everything on paper, having to go through batch records and try to, put things into an Excel spreadsheet and everything like that. So just being able to, every day, being able to see where we may be trending in certain areas and need to focus changes or anything like that, and being able to, stay on top of it, across the board with all the, the different digital platforms.
Thank you to Bob and Jim for your insights on MasterControl logbooks. And thank you to Mooch for showing us that brief demo to help us understand really what the platform can do. That's all the time we have today. If you have more questions about MasterControl logbooks, please do not hesitate to visit mastercontrol.com or fill out a contact us form and indicate MasterControl logbooks as the solution interested. We hope you have a wonderful day and you join us again in the future.